Hi, and welcome to episode 138 of C3 Crystals, Cauldrons, and Cocktails. I'm Ren,
I'm River.
and today we are going to talk about how to dispose of spell components after casting a spell. Bow, bow, bow.
Yes.
Um, but first, before we get to the good part of what are we drinking, which isn't really fun today, um, we want to, I guess, apologize about our late episodes.
hmm
There was a little bit of a uh-oh in my health the past couple of weeks.
hmm
So it's been a lot of doctor's office and me sleeping, and I'm exhausted and my body
hmm
is trying to heal.
hmm
Um, so that was an unexpected turn.
Yes.
I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, man, we were boasting about how we didn't miss a single week except for like 1 week, which was the last week of the year last year.
hmm
And that was for holiday purposes and all of that. And then this year has been rough already. We're already in June. Holy cow.
I know.
Um, and it's been rough. It's been rough to say the least.
It
Um,
has.
but and in I guess in part of me not feeling so well and us just wanting to make sure that our listeners are happy, and so we went ahead and did the wheel spin of all of the people who have submitted their names for the code word that we had. We're not going to be posting the wheel spin. We're not like how we did last time, just to keep it easier on ourselves. So our winners were Paula and Brittany. Woo! We're so
Woo!
excited.
Yay!
Congratulations. And if you guys weren't a winner, do not fret. There will be many more of these giveaways. And we have something special coming up for patrons as well. Wow. So stay tuned for that. Um,
And
but
Brittany and Paula, your shirts have already been
yes,
they're in production and should be on their way to you.
yes. So we are super excited. Now some of our stuff that we've been working on have has been paused due to my health issues.
hmm
But as soon as we can get back onto everything that we were doing, we will definitely revamp and look at more opportunities with our merch, like how we've been talking about, and maybe make
hmm
them price better and material better and etc.
hmm
But for right now, that is on pause.
hmm Yeah.
Um, I think I covered a little bit of everything that I wanted to talk about. I just wanted to apologize and thank you for the support for everybody who had messaged and
Yes.
said
hmm
that I like get well soon, Thank you so much for all those supportive words. They really do make me feel better. Um, yeah, it's fine.
And so the what are we drinking?
Yeah,
She's not drinking
I'm not
today
drinking
because of
nothing
her health.
fun. Uh-huh. So I'm just
And
having some tea, decaf tea.
and I'm not drinking in solidarity of my friend. So no.
Aw, isn't that lovely?
Mm-hmm.
So nice of you.
Mm-hmm. I know, man, it's
Mm-hmm.
so hard.
Yeah. So it's we're hopefully by next week, knock on wood, hopefully everything goes fine. We can get
hmm
everything
Back
out and
back
have
on
some things
track.
recorded and maybe even extra episodes recorded just in case
hmm
something happens like this. But yeah, so I guess let's just like hop right into it.
Okay.
So in the witch world, the use of spell components is both a traditional and practical necessity. So
hmm
you use things like herbs, crystals, candles, and various other items to focus and amplify magical intention, which
hmm
I feel like is a broken record of us all, really.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's magic. So
it is.
yeah.
However, the disposal of these components is a topic that warrants careful consideration. Just as we mindfully choose our ingredients, we must also dispose of them responsibly to honor whatever around, the environment, and the spiritual realms as well.
Yeah, for sure. And to understand spell components, they can be broadly categorized into either natural or synthetic materials.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So Natural materials might be the herbs, the flowers, the stones, water, other elements derived from the earth, whereas synthetic components might be candles, papers, any man-made crafted items.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
each of those different types have their own disposal considerations.
Hmm. I agree. I mean, we'll get a little bit more into it, but the one thing that probably not use in my practice is styrofoam.
For sure.
Because that's one
Hmm.
of the ones that like you can't recycle it anymore. I mean, you
Hmm.
used to be able to. It used to be, right? It used to be recyclable, or am I just losing my mind?
I'm not sure. And I feel like, does styrofoam burn? Oh, but it
It
might create a toxic
it
gas.
it,
I
it
don't
does,
know.
and it like melts, and it's just not a good. It's not a good
Okay.
thing. So I try to avoid it if I can in my craft.
Okay.
And I know we'll talk a little bit more about that, but styrofoam to me is the number one
The number one no no.
that I won't use.
Hmm.
Just because you can't dispose of it, basically.
Yeah, it's around forever.
For it's a
Okay.
forever chemical type of vibe.
Okay.
But before we get into that, there's some ethical disposal methods that we should talk about. So we have the natural components where these things are biodegradable. So these biodegradable materials have many natural components to it. So like their herbs, their flowers, their other plant materials, and these can be returned to the earth.
Yeah, that makes sense.
However, yeah, be aware of where those items come from. Even if it is just a flower, it might not be local to the ecosystem, and the nature spirits may be unhappy with you just tossing it and being willy-nilly
That's
about it.
that's a good point. And maybe it's not even good for the local
Hmm.
wildlife. I hadn't
Hmm.
thought about
Hmm.
that.
Yeah, I mean, you think about, okay, so, hmm, how do I put this? So you're eating an orange and you have an
Hmm.
orange peel and you're like, ugh, I'm just gonna chuck it into the forest because it's just gonna, biodegrade. It's just gonna go right back into the earth, which is
Hmm.
true. But you also have to be mindful of everything else around.
Hmm.
So if you're
Yeah, that's a good idea.
disposing of natural materials, make sure they are from your local area.
Okay.
And then consider burying these items in a garden or a special place in nature. So, like with my orange peel, example, I would say if you have a compost, throw it in there instead of just willy-nilly back into the nature.
Hmm.
Because the compost, it is what's the word I'm looking for? It is local. It
She's
is located.
she's
It's like
making hand
I'm making
motions,
claw
y'all.
hands to show it's like a crane, the crane, or what's that Toy Story thing? The claw.
The claw.
That's literally what I'm doing. But it's when you throw something into your compost, the compost is more localized and it's
Hmm.
going to be used by you in your local area, like your
Hmm.
garden, your whatever. But
Hmm.
you never know what it's going to be like if you just toss it out into, like, let's say your backyard is wooded or whatever, and you don't know what's going to happen.
That makes sense to me. Like
Hmm.
um, you know how we use jars in spells? Well, at least I
Hmm.
use jars in
Hmm.
spells. I think witches in general just love jars. But
Absolutely.
you can make your quote jars out of something that is a natural material instead of having a
Oh, that's
plastic
true.
jar
Hmm.
or a
Hmm.
glass jar or a resin jar. You can, if you're going to bury it, make a leaf jar for your
Ooh, I
materials.
like that
And
idea.
yeah, then the whole thing is biodegradable.
Hmm. Hmm.
Also, did you know that glass is not classified as a solid? You probably did because you're a science person, but I didn't know this. It's not classified as a solid or a liquid or a gas. When it
Hmm.
is cooled, glass forms a quote amorphous solid that allows molecules within the glass to continue moving around. And also, did you
Hmm.
know
Okay.
glass can take 1 million years to decompose?
Oh, shoot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah. So if you are going to do something with glass and you're going to want it to go back into nature, then do things like I was talking about, make your jar or
Hmm.
your bowl or whatever it is that is holding your ingredients, make it biodegradable as well. Yeah,
Hmm.
very but you talked about
Interesting.
composting is a great idea. I think that's
Oh,
a
yeah, definitely.
really eco-friendly option to add these biodegradable
Hmm.
spell components
Hmm.
to your compost bin. and that will allow them to decompose naturally. And then you use it back, like in your witchy garden, and
Mm-hmm.
to enrich your
Mm-hmm.
soil. And that creates a positive environmental aspect.
Absolutely. I also really like the idea of a compost bin being made of something that is also biodegradable, but
Mm-hmm.
not like short-term biodegradable, long-term biodegradable, like wood.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you have like untreated wood, which I think is
Mm-hmm.
more natural than treated wood, but do what you
Mm-hmm.
want because if it lasts longer, then it'll last longer.
Yeah,
But if you have like, you just build it yourself or whatever, and you do wood planks or 2x4s, whatever, and make your own little compost bin,
that's interesting. Yeah,
then your compost, like after you're gone and thousands of years later, it'll be returned to the earth instead of still sitting there.
I like that idea.
Hmm.
Excuse me. I just swallowed my spit. Wow.
LOL. You need a
Which is
drink.
funny. I know. And I had water, but I need an alcoholic drink. I'm trying to be supportive, Ren. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Which this makes me think of, swallowing my own spit, water disposal. So, what if we've used water in our spells? So, sometimes you can just pour it back into the earth. It depends on
Hmm.
what you've done with it.
Hmm. Hmm.
But be wary of pouring it into bodies of water like rivers or oceans, even if you think it's harmless, the water that you have, because it could disrupt local ecosystems.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
what you toss in here in the stream, it goes downstream and it might become garbage to someone else.
Hmm.
So be sure that if you're using the running water method of disposal, that you consider what it is you're putting into the water, where it is you're putting into the water,
Hmm.
where this water goes, and think about that from an ecological standpoint and as well as the end result of what's going to happen to it whenever it goes wherever it's going.
Hmm. So you just need basically a whole like maybe ecology degree to
That
understand
would
to do
that's
this.
right. Ecological witches, man. Speaking of water, did you know that the same amount of water on Earth is here now as there was when the Earth was formed? So
Hmm.
the water that you drink out of your faucet actually could contain molecules that dinosaurs drank. Same
So
water.
growing up, I don't know if you ever had this, like you had this in uh growing up or anything, but all the students and like how old would we be? Maybe like 8, 9,
Okay.
not even. Um, you would learn about this in science class in elementary
Hmm.
school, and you'd be like, wow, water's like reusable, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm drinking dinosaur pee.
Oh,
And all the time, they're like, oh, did you know if you drink a glass of water, you're drinking dinosaur pee because all of the water's reused and recycled? Dinosaur pee is the thing that came up into our like 8-year-old minds.
that is hilarious. Also, about 97% of the world's water is salty and or otherwise undrinkable. So
Hmm.
97% of the
Hmm.
water that we have on this planet, we can't even drink.
Nope.
And then the other another 2% of the water is actually locked in ice caps and glaciers, although with global issues going on, those are
Cool.
melting
Yeah, we're
now.
seeing them now.
But that leaves just 1% of all the water on the planet that humanity uses for agricultural,
Hmm.
residential, manufacturing, personal,
Hmm.
community.
Isn't that
Just
crazy?
1% of the water on Earth. That is
Yeah,
crazy.
it's crazy.
Anyway, so another way to dispose of natural and environments. Let's not dispose of natural environments.
No,
Let's
no.
dispose of spell components uh, naturally. You can use fire as a way to dispose of certain spell components, and
Okay.
that actually, wow, why am I struggling? It's the lack of alcohol, y'all.
Yeah.
Um, Actually, as you burn it, it can release your intent into the universe. So you can actually make the disposal of your spell components a part of your spell
Ooh, I like
and
that.
going towards your manifestation. Did you know, and I'm sure you did, our little science person over there, um, oxygen supply is what influences the color of a flame. So a
Hmm. Hmm.
low oxygen fire contains a lot of uncombusted fuel particles and it will give off that yellow glow. But a high oxygen fire burns blue.
hmm I knew
which I
that.
thought was really cool.
Hmm.
And also, Earth is the only known planet on our galaxy in our galaxy on which fire can burn because the rest of the planets in our galaxy don't have enough oxygen to support the burning of a flame.
Hmm. That's so interesting because if you think about it in a star aspect, like how
Mm-hmm.
our stars are balls of gas
Yeah.
and there's no oxygen out there to feed the
Yeah.
fire. It's
Yeah.
stars are a whole nother conversation, but it's
They
rather
are.
interesting because they vary in color, like orange and yellow, but
Mm-hmm.
then they also go to blues and whites because those are the
Mm-hmm.
hottest. So it's just rather interesting. I could talk
That
about
is
science forever.
interesting. Well, I love fire. Fire is a
hmm
thing of
hmm
mine. And did you know, the Olympic flame that we see every Olympics?
hmm
The ancient Greece used the power of sunlight to start that Olympic flame.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Like a magnifying glass type of
Yeah,
vibe.
probably. Yeah.
Pew, you know.
I think that's really cool.
So some other things that we should talk about when getting rid of these components are synthetic components and
Mm-hmm.
recycling. So many synthetic spell components can be recycled, like glass jars, but not so much where we are anymore. They don't accept glass as much
Yeah,
anymore.
they don't over here either. I don't know
hmm
why.
I maybe they just had too much. I don't really know the process in that, but we went from being able to recycle all of our glass jars and bottles,
Mm-hmm.
etc.
Wine
to
bottles. I have
yeah,
lots of
yeah,
those.
um so it I guess that one consider your area as well with what you
Mm-hmm.
can recycle. So just,
Mm-hmm.
quick Google search. You can do paper, of course, and certain plastics can be recycled, but make sure that you clean all of your products beforehand. So like let's say if you can recycle glass, let's say you have a spaghetti sauce jar, clean it and then you place it into your recycling bin because
Mm-hmm.
then they won't recycle it if it's dirty.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
I do like recycling a lot. If you use cardboard, that's such as paper, like cardboard boxes, et cetera, et cetera. Like aluminum cans, like little soda cans, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
aluminum cans, like and all of that. Those can be recycled. A lot more than what I'm saying can also be recycled, but
Mm-hmm.
also it's very important to look at your jurisdiction, like where you are and what can be recycled in your area.
That's true. You know, but for real, you talk about glass being recycled. What witch is going to dispose of their glass jars? I mean, I'm just sorry. That just doesn't happen. That's not a thing. We all have stockpiles of them. They go right with our journals.
hmm Yeah, you have no, absolutely. You have a pile over here of journals for each topic, and then now you have a little glass
Glass
jar for each
jars.
topic. But I will say I do like to keep little mini like we said wine bottles and stuff, but
Hmm.
I it hurts to throw those things away too because
It
they're such
does.
nice bottles. And now that you just taught me that glass doesn't um
It doesn't break
biodegrade
down.
and for
Yeah.
1,000 years. I'm like, holy shit, that's a lot
Yeah.
of bottles. So I'm hoping
Yeah.
that like your area at least will take them for recycling
Yeah, for
because that would
sure.
be much better than not having it break down for 1,000 years.
I know. But I liked your idea of when you talked about making sure that they were clean before you recycle
hmm
them,
hmm
especially when we're casting spells. You know, you
Yes.
don't want any spell residual magic to
You
be
just made me think of
out there.
my brain went to spaghetti sauce. Not not like, oh
Well,
yeah, we are using like essential oils and we have our like herbs and
no,
concoctions and stuff. No, mine went to food.
because you're a kitchen witch.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
And you wouldn't catch me recycling a spaghetti jar or getting rid of a spaghetti jar. I keep all my jars, like how we just said, no matter what the jar looks like. It's my husband who's like, we have too many damn jars.
That's funny. You know, talking about the stuff that doesn't degenerate, that's not the right word.
Um,
Biodegrade.
biodegrade,
Biodegrade,
break
that's the word.
down. Yeah.
Did you know that the average person creates almost 5 pounds of trash per day? Five
I
pounds of trash per
I don't
day.
doubt it. I don't doubt it.
And in 2018, American consumers created 146.2 million tons of trash that ended up in landfills. But Americans are also recycling more and composting more. So they are have composted in 2018 almost 94 million tons of waste. So,
Okay.
and that's grown more in the past 38 years. So
Hmm.
at any rate, we don't want to add any more garbage with our spell
Yes.
remnants than we
Yes.
already apparently produce.
It was rather interesting because I was watching TikTok as usual in all my spare time that I have right now, laying on the couch and resting.
Hmm.
I was on TikTok way too much, way too much. But one of those videos, a lot of them, because I have an algorithm and it knows me. And one of my main things is I would love to move to Europe one day.
Hmm.
And so I get a lot of, yeah, I just moved to, Germany or I moved to Italy and etc.
Hmm.
And here's how I've had an experience culture shock. And so and surprisingly, a lot of these videos include the culture shock of not having trash and
Hmm.
how their cultures over there revolve around recycling and disposing of materials properly. And one of them, she was in Germany, and she said, here we have like multiple separate bins for all the materials. So one is just for plastics, one is just for glass, one is just for aluminum, etc., paper, and all of it's broken down. So if you get a packet, like a wrapping package, like let's say you go to the grocery store, you get a package of feta cheese and it comes in the plastic. So you
Hmm.
eat the cheese, you clean out the plastic, and then there's usually a soft plastic and then a hard plastic. Like let's say it peels off the
Okay.
top or something. The
Hmm.
soft plastic, you would clean it and put it in a different bin than what you would put the hard plastic in.
We should do
And
that
so,
here.
yes. And so it was like she was like, basically, we have no trash. It's all being reused and recycled. And I just thought
That's
that was the greatest thing.
amazing.
And why, yeah, exactly. Why don't we do that here? And I know that in some Asian countries, maybe Japan or China, they're very particular on how you can recycle and how you get rid of your trash, where if you
Hmm.
don't do it right, you get fined or something like that.
I
And so I'm
like
like,
that
why
idea.
don't we here do that? Because we, like how you just said, we have so millions of tons of trash that end up in landfills.
And we are so willing, like we were doing the recycling of the glass, the wine bottles that I've
Mhm.
got tons of,
Like,
and they stopped taking them.
I
They
feel like
won't take them.
if our system here would implement some sort of recycling like recycling like that, like if it's broken up
Hmm.
into components and it's something that we can do to help, well, I don't see why not. Like why don't we do that? Like if
I don't know. We should
um,
do it.
yeah, and I feel like if it was made into an everyday life type of thing, then it wouldn't be a big problem.
Yeah, we just do it automatically.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, like, oh, okay, this needs to go here. Okay, just have your different bins and that's it.
Hmm.
Anyways, Um, reusing stuff is very important as well. So some synthetic components can be reused in future spells or other craft projects. So for example, candles.
Hmm.
Candles can be melted down and reformed, which I really like about that.
Hmm.
And paper can be repurposed for notes and new spells, but also like our jars and all of that, they can also be
Hmm.
cleaned out. Like I feel like our glass jars. So let's say I really like the tall, skinny ones. Like I
Hmm.
just love those. And they have like a little cork that goes in the top. So
Hmm.
after you're done with all of whatever you're doing, let's say you do a jar spell and maybe you don't seal it with wax, maybe you do some twine around it or
Hmm.
something, then you can like unravel the twine, reuse that twine, and then empty out your jar spell. But again, empty out the components on the inside properly. But
Hmm.
just talking about the jar for this example, then you can just take your jar and clean it out really well and reuse it for your next one.
Yeah, I love that idea, and I think it's a smart idea. I just worry about reusing some things because
Hmm.
that you've put that magical intent into it,
I was gonna
and that
say that that could make it stronger too for the next
it
time you use it.
could, but it could also confuse the energies. If that was a love
But
spell
if
and
you're
you're,
if you're cleaning it, then you're cleaning
that's
away
true.
the old intention as well, if you think about it in that way. And
That's
there's
true.
multiple ways. So let's say you physically clean it with soap and water, etc.,
Hmm.
scrubber, but you can also leave it out in the moon, you can leave it out in the sun and cleanse it that way as well.
Salt,
Salt,
smoke. Yeah.
incense, yeah. So I feel like there could definitely be a leftover magical residue, but if you're cleaning it in an effective way and you have intent on cleaning it to be able to
That's
repurpose it
true.
for this reason, then I think
That's
that it would be fine.
that's like what we were saying in the very beginning, to use the same intent to
Hmm.
dispose of them as you did to
Yes.
put them in, and
Yes.
that intent and focus on clearing that magical energy and
Hmm.
dispersing it can definitely that's definitely a good way to do that. And
Hmm.
just be safe in the way you dispose things. There are items that can't be recycled or
Yeah.
reused,
Yeah.
so follow local guidelines in your jurisdiction for
Hmm.
the safe disposal of things. Avoid burning synthetic materials like we were talking about with the styrofoam,
Yes.
because they can
Yes.
release harmful chemicals into the air too.
Hmm. Same
Yeah.
thing with candles as well, because I mean we don't think about candles as like being harmful when you light them, but some
Mm-hmm.
candles can be toxic isn't the right word, but it can be damaging. You can't leave candles on for a long amount of time if
Mm-hmm.
there's certain material and all of that. They can leave black soot on your walls and on the material,
Mm-hmm.
the things that you have around it. So be careful when also burning your candles if you are using candles and stuff like that.
That's true.
And then you also have those spiritual considerations that we were talking about a little bit earlier. So disposing of spell components is not only environmental, it's like an environmental concern, but also a spiritual one. So think
Mm-hmm.
about how to ensure your disposal methods and if they are like make sure they're respectful and align with magical traditions,
Mm-hmm.
your magical traditions, what
Mm-hmm.
it may be. So before disposing of components, conformance, well, perform a cleansing ritual to remove any residual energy. And this can be
That
done
makes
using,
sense.
like
Yeah.
how we were talking about before, this can be done using like incense. It can be used by water, etc., or by visualizing white light, purifying the items. It doesn't have to be anything physical in that
That's
way.
true.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And then also have some gratitude. Express gratitude to the components and for the service that they had provided for you during your magical work. And this acknowledgement honors their role and contribution to your magical practice in a what was I going to say? In a respectful way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it does seem disrespectful to just chunk the ingredients into the
Hmm.
trash
Hmm.
after they've helped us perform whatever this spell, this
Yeah.
manifestation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
I
that makes
tend to
sense.
never really throw anything away. I
Are
guess
you a hoarder?
I do use a lot of things again. Like I do reuse a lot of things. So I feel like this
Mm-hmm.
is right up my alley because I really I mean right now, financially I can't just go rebuy things, et cetera, et cetera. And so what
Mm-hmm.
I do have, I do want to try to reuse it as much as I can.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then you have to make sure, like we always say, intention is very important. So maybe set a clear intention for the disposal process. Whether
Mm-hmm.
you're returning the items back to the earth, whether you're recycling them, whether you're throwing them away, do so with a mindful and respectfulness.
I agree with
Respectfulness, a
that.
word,
Res
respectfulness.
es- bu- 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 there are some different spell components that might require some specific disposal methods. Like when you think about crystals and stones, you can rebury them back into the earth or place them in natural water sources, provided they're not harmful to the
Uh-huh.
environment.
Hmm.
Or you can cleanse them and reuse them, like you said. I mean, we've often talked about how you cleanse crystals in the
Hmm.
moonlight or in the
Hmm.
sunlight or in salt, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
And then ashes. So, say that your spell requires you to burn your components. So, burned ashes or papers can be scattered in the wind
Hmm.
or buried or added to your compost, because that's a natural thing that can go back into the earth. But
Hmm.
you have to ensure that they're completely cooled before you do that. Don't
Yeah.
want to start any
Yeah, no,
wildfires out
don't
there.
don't do that, please. And also ensure that before doing that, it's your you're okay to do that. Your area is okay,
Yeah, yeah.
a-okay to do that,
Mm-hmm.
just in case.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like I said, with the wax and the candles, um, like I said earlier that you can reuse them by melting and reforming them.
Mm-hmm.
And so if disposal is necessary, make sure you solidify the wax and wrap it in biodegradable paper before burying or discarding it. And then keep in mind the type of wax that it is as well. There are natural waxes that are safe to bury, but some candles are made of that paraffin.
Mm-hmm.
Like there you got a lot of stuff going on in some candles. So
Mm-hmm.
that
That's
one
true.
that material probably should not be buried. Or another thought is that the wax will burn away in a fire as
That's
well.
true.
So
Mm-hmm.
if you just wait for it to burn away, but I feel like there's always a little bit of excess in the bottom.
I think so
So just
too.
make
Yeah.
sure to keep in mind after what you're going to do with the candle and what the candle is made of so you can dispose of it properly.
Yeah, I wanted to see what other witches do. And so I went on Reddit, which you know that I spend a lot of time on Reddit.
Yes.
Um, and this one Redditor said, she said, I like to focus on being a tech witch.
Hmm.
It's basically a zero waste practice.
Well, that's great.
Yeah. However, when I really feel like doing a real life ritual, I make sure that I don't leave any damaging trace. Hence why I recommend Mojo lucky bags way more than spell jars, or even just drawing sigils or doing art witchcraft.
Hmm.
She says, I have crystal jars, but I use them to keep things like my moon water or my magic
Oh,
oils.
I love that.
And she said, last but not least, I would also recommend recycling the things you have to create new tools rather than buying your new tools on Amazon.
Hmm.
For example, a book of shadows, a cauldron, a wand, you can make those things from prior used magical things that you've
Hmm.
you've used.
I like that. There's also another thing that we hadn't talked about, and I'm not sure we will talk about it. It's thrifting as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love to thrift, and I
We
guess I
we should
didn't
do a
really,
topic on thrifting,
yeah,
witchcraft thrifting.
I guess I didn't really think of it in the terms of disposal wise, right? Because that's what the
Mm-hmm.
topic is. But if there is anything that you need to buy that you probably won't dispose of, like maybe a jar or something
Mm-hmm.
like that, you can definitely, instead of going into consumerism and buying new and blah, you can thrift some things, which is pretty decent. But like you
Well,
said,
and
we should do an episode on that.
also if you have things that you have thoroughly cleaned and cleansed, like jars, you can
Hmm.
thrift those back to the thrift
Yeah,
store.
you can give it back so
Yeah,
somebody else
just
can
make
use it.
sure it's
Exactly.
you don't want to send any magical taint
Yeah, you have
onto someone
a
else.
curse bottle being sent out into the world. Oh gosh.
Yeah, another Redditor said um, not to kill plants while practicing. She
Oh.
said, no plant slaughtering. In fact, if you could spin your spell into a seed, so you fill the seed with your will and intention and then plant it and water it. And each time you do so, you're breathing more energy into it. And
Hmm.
she suggested that as it grows roots, so too does your intention. And believe that as you send it up and it shoots and leaves, your spell is growing in power as well. And if it blooms, like if it's got a flower on it, then
Hmm.
that so does your spell. And she said that's a wonderful type of magic.
That's I really like that. I've never thought of it
I do
like that
too.
before.
I hadn't either. And then I found one on a blog that she said if you have worked a spell that has potential to, quote, go off the rails like a love spell, she would advise keeping the remnants along with a list of exactly what you did and used just so you can reverse it in case you need to.
Hmm. Hmm.
So the disposal of spell components is vital to the responsible magic
Hmm.
practice of magic.
Practice
Um,
magic, practice of. Wow.
and as witches, we should try to ensure that our magical practice don't harm the environment or the spiritual community out there, the little spirits out there, the fae, whatever it is.
Hmm.
So we know when you're done with your spells, just try to reflect on gratitude and give the respect where it's due and just be very careful in how you dispose of your stuff.
Absolutely. I agree.
That's all I've got.
I think that this topic is very important. So
Hmm.
if you don't listen to any other of our episodes, just listen to this one. This one's, I think, pretty important when it comes to helping the environment around us and just caring about, you know, what our future generations
Mm-hmm.
have and to try
That's
to
true.
leave a light footprint, a
Mm-hmm.
light carbon footprint, if you can. So that's all I have to say. So if you like what you heard, you can find us at www.c3witchypodcast.com. There you will find links to all of our episodes, all of our social medias as well. That is Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, which is now X. I think I'm missing a couple, but you can find all of that at our website. And you can also find our merch at www.c3witchypodcastmerch.com. There we have different designs, very unique designs. We each design one for the Sabbats and our After Dark series, and then we have one normal witchy design. So you can go check that out. Like I said earlier, we're trying to kind of work on it and morph into something a little bit more affordable and better material. So we're working on that right now. So stay tuned. You can also find our newsletter. I'm kind of being all choppy, but you can also find our newsletter on our website. You can find like little blurbs and about our episode on the front page, as well as about our After Dark on the front page as well. I really love that section. It's one of my favorite add-ons. But I think that's it.
We'll be back.
We'll be back.
And until then, stay witchy.